Hello everyone, my name is Dakoba, and welcome back to Satisfactory. Today we're going to be taking a look at a storage and sorting system and talking about how you can create a smart storage system that will let you put any items you're producing in your factories or that you gather out in the world, and will sort them out into different containers for easy access later on. Now this build is really simple and fairly early game, but there are a few prerequisites. First off, you're going to need the Awesome Sink, and the Awesome Sink is located in the Tier 2 milestone, the Resource Sink bonus program. You're also going to need to unlock the Tier 2 milestone part assembly in order to get copper sheeting, because that's one of the components for making smart splitters. Smart splitters themselves are found about halfway down the Caterium research tree in the MAM, but they don't actually require any advanced technologies to unlock. Just Caterium and Quickwire, which will open up AI limiters, and AI limiters are made from copper sheeting and Quickwire. Once you have that, the smart splitters themselves are built with reinforced iron plates and rotors. So again, all Tier 1 and 2 recipes. Now how the system works is that you bring all of your input items in on a belt line. We're going to be using a truck station for this, but you can use any sort of logistics system you want, whether that's belting over directly from your factory, or using vehicles or trains or drones or whatever you like. From that input line, it's going to pass through a series of smart splitters, and each smart splitter is going to filter out one item into a storage container. Now we're going to set the smart splitters to be intelligent, so when that storage container backfills, when it overflows, those items, instead of clogging the system, are going to be passed along. The next splitter in turn will filter out a different item. When all of the inputs have passed through all of the splitters, either because they don't belong in the storage system or because the place they belong is filled up, then they'll pass through and go into an Awesome Sink to prevent the system from backlogging. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get into the build. Alright, now here we've got two truck stations that represent the inputs to our system. These are gathering up items from all the different factories all over the map: our Caterium factory, our starter factory, our modular frame factory, our quartz factory up in the distance, and they're bringing them in along these lines to these two stations. And these are going to act as the starting place for our sorting system. Now our goal today is to take the items that are being brought into these truck stations and place them into a line of containers. Now we've gone ahead and set up a row of storage containers that we want to sort our items into, and each of these items is getting a different collection of items that will go into storage. So what we're going to do is set up some smart splitters that'll process these. Now the smart splitters do have an orientation. The orange is the back of the orientation, and then they have three outputs: the left output, the center output, and the right output. In this case, our first storage container is located on the center output, and we want to send our excess items down the right output, down the line of storage containers. Let's go ahead and configure this first storage container to use wire. And then we'll set the right output to overflow. This will mean anything that isn't included on the other outputs, or if we back up on wire, we won't simply sit on the item, we'll simply pass it along. And then we can set up a belt line to connect that in. And so as wire flows out, it will flow in there. Our next item up appears to be concrete. Since that doesn't have anywhere to go at this time, it's backing up there. So let's go ahead and set up our next splitter here. In this case, we want the orange input feeding in from our previous smart splitter. That means our storage container is going to use the left output, and our logistics line forward is going to use the center output. Let's configure that, and we'll set this one to concrete. And so you can see that as the items have a storage container, they'll be sorted into the correct one. Let's go ahead and set up all the rest of these and take a look at the system once it's up and running. Alright, and that is a functional storage system all complete. If we open up each of these containers, we'll see that they contain only the items that are meant to be sorted into them. And you can also see that I've decorated and labeled some of them, so we can put some items out on front. Let's take a closer look at how we might want to decorate these. Now, when it comes to actually displaying what's in the container, so you know which container has your items, you have a few options, and I'm showing a few of those here. There's an advanced technique called the waterfall system, which we'll go through in a minute. This is actually the input belt for the container, so we can see what's flowing into it. When the container backs up, this belt will stop showing the items in this location, and when we take items out, that belt will start moving again as it refills. Since this container is still filling for the first time, you can see that that the wire is flowing in well. You can also place a little conveyor belt on the output of it, just creating a sort of little tongue here that the first couple items in there will come out. You can also use this to grab one item at a time from it. And then you can also actually just drop the items in the world and create sort of a visual reminder out in the world for what's inside the container. All right, now the belting for the waterfall system is a little complex, so let's go through it. We have our input line coming as we showed in the build, but instead of it going directly into the storage container, we are redirecting it up a conveyor lift and forward above the storage container. It then goes into a vertical lift that passes down alongside of it, and that's what allows when we pull an item out for that system to start flowing again. Now, after the conveyor lift passes underneath the foundation, it's got another belt system that loops around underneath, around, and behind the container and feeds up into it directly. So that's what allows it to finally fill the container. Now, of course, you can decorate these and indicate what's in the storage containers any way you like. And if you have a way that you do this that you think is cool, I'd love to hear about it. So leave a note down in the comments below. Now, there are a couple of things to keep in mind if you're going to build a storage system like this. First of all, your total item throughput is limited by your maximum belt speed. If you're building this in the very early game, where you only have access to Mark II belts, then your total item throughput is going to be limited to 120 items per minute. If you're bringing things from multiple factories and you're going to exceed that, you'll need to run multiple sorting systems in parallel. This is especially true later in the game, where you might have 40 or 50 items going into your storage system, and so you're definitely going to need to set up multiple smaller sorting systems side by side. Second, there are a number of items that have the potential to clog your system. These are things like the food items, the pale berries and barrel nuts, or power slugs, for example. And if you don't have a dedicated storage container set up for them, then they will clog your system. I recommend not using this sort of setup as an inventory dump, and instead using it as a sort of mall, where you can go and pick up all the items you need to go and build a new factory that are provided by your various production lines around the map. Finally, if you do build this early on and end up upgrading your belt lines later on, you'll want to make sure that you go through and upgrade all the belts throughout the system. This is especially true if you're doing something like the waterfall item display method, where if you have a lower speed belt at any point in that line, it'll act as a throttle and you'll end up sinking a bunch of inventory that you otherwise would have room to store. And that's going to do it for today. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video and found this guide to a storage and sorting system helpful. Leave a like if you have and subscribe if you'd like to see more. My name is Dagoba, and I hope you have an efficient day. I'll see you soon.